Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Great to be here with you today. Brand new show format debuting here, and we're going to be going over an actual lab result. So I have a real life client here, Michael, and he's brave enough to go over his lab results right here on the show. I'm going to walk you through what this lab looks like, what the results are, and then an actual program we use in the real world to get clients the results they're looking for. So if you want to follow along with all of the show notes, head on over to stephencabral.com/3518. Michael, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Cabral.
So what I want to go over, and I know that you are not a professional podcaster or a podcast host or guest, but you're a real client. You have run this lab with Equilife, wanting to look at your results and see what they mean in terms of your symptoms. So having not worked with you before, I would love to know what your health history has looked like. Any symptoms that you'd like to talk about, please only feel free to share what you feel comfortable. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this, since it's going to help out a lot of other people who would love to learn about how they can get results themselves with functional medicine lab testing.
Yeah. So I've been following Equilife and your work for maybe like 6 or 7 years now. I read your book and I've run multiple labs, and this minerals and metals test, I feel like is one of those labs that's a little bit harder to interpret on your own. So I'm really grateful to have you, the professional lab reader that you are, to go over this. But I'm a pretty healthy person overall. I stay, I eat at home, I go to the gym, I drink enough water, I have the filters. But there's still some things that I struggle with, and it's mainly around my nervous system. So I have sleep issues. I feel like sometimes at night I get anxiety before going to bed, and I feel like I can't get my heart rate down low enough to get into a deep sleep. I also have, I would say, like energy fluctuations throughout the day. Um, and, I drink coffee in the morning, just 1 cup. But I think even for me, sometimes the caffeine is too much, even 1 cup.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like I can just feel run down and I'm not sleeping well, even though I'm doing everything else pretty much right. So,
It's interesting just hearing you go over those symptoms and being able to pull up your lab in a moment, which directly reflects that. That's not always the case, obviously, with every single lab. There's sometimes multiple health-based imbalances that we need to take into consideration. But I think you're going to find it very fascinating as to how your results actually match your symptoms, especially us having not worked together on this. So just a couple qualifying questions I have for you is that, do you typically have your coffee before breakfast, or do you have it after breakfast? And what does that breakfast look like right now?
I try to always have my coffee after breakfast, but it's not always. My
Okay.
breakfast is typically either a smoothie with the DNS powder and some other stuff, some creatine, some collagen, things of that nature, or I'll have oats, or I'll have maybe a couple of eggs and an avocado and some tomato, something.
Okay, great. And then what time are you typically, like, do you have a bedtime routine as to where you begin to wind down, or do you just kind of stop for the day and then go right to bed? What does that bedtime wind down routine look like?
I try to have dinner by like 6:30 to 7:30 latest. Obviously, I'm not perfect because, I work during the day and then I want to go to the gym or I want to do, a hike or something like that. And sometimes dinner's a little bit later than I'd like. But, my wind down routine is like I try to stop drinking liquids because I often do wake up to pee at night as well. So I'm trying to like minimize that as well because that disrupts sleep. And obviously, I try to turn off my phone and put it on airplane mode and kind of like read, lay on the PEMF mat, do all the things, and then sometimes I'll get in bed even by like 10 p.m., like a perfect bedtime. But then I'm still not really like getting my heart rate down and getting into that deep sleep and falling asleep quickly.
Do you know your average heart rate and deep sleep overnight? What that looks like?
I don't do any tracking.
Okay. So that's always optional for our clients, but it's at least something worth looking at. The Aura Ring, we have no affiliation with them, but it seems to be the most accurate and least invasive. And you don't have to wear it all day if you don't want. You can put it on airplane mode before you go to bed, but maybe a couple hours before bed, you put that on, and then you then look at your regular heart rate before bed, a couple hours, and then you say, okay, where does it drop? Because our goal for you is to get that resting heart rate to drop at its lowest point within the first, ideally, 2 hours, but if not 4 hours of going to bed. And as we do know, and you probably heard on the show, that the majority of that deep sleep is going to happen the first half of the night. So for us to reduce your the anxious mind and to calm the body, they go one and the same. So if your physiology is stressed, it'll stress your mind. And if your mind is stressed, it'll stress your physiology. And the physiology is easier for us to read. So that's what we use, like with the Aura Ring, is we see, does body temperature lower? Does heart rate lower? Does breath rate begin to drop? Those are all things that we want to measure. So those are just a couple quick tips that we can look at. So when we do a follow-up, we'll be able to better assess the physiology if that's matching. But let's go over your actual lab results right now. And then please do ask any questions as we're going through it. So as I pull up this lab test, Michael ran what's called the minerals and metals test. This lab has been around for over, I believe, 50 years. I used it about 30 years ago, and it was one of the very first labs that I ran when I got my introduction into natural health. I had been to over 24 different doctors in conventional medicine. I found my first natural health-based doctor through recommendation. This was in the mid to late 90s. And I took a couple samples of hair, and that's all that Michael did, a couple snips of hair. And if you have about every half inch of hair is about 30 days worth of data. So if you send in no more than an inch and a half, that's 90 days of data. Michael's hair is a little bit longer. Michael, were you able to do an inch and a half, or did you just do a half an inch?
I did about an inch and a half.
Okay, so an inch and a half closest to the scalp. You don't pull the hair out. You just do small snips of hair underneath that you'll never see missing. Even for someone like myself with short hair, I can get a half an inch, and so that's what I can send in to get. Now, what the lab does is they turn this to an ash, and they actually look at the minerals in that ash. The same way we look at food, the same way that the FBI or any of these organizations are able to test for whether it's drugs or minerals, et cetera. This lab doesn't look at genetics. It only looks at your mineral levels and heavy metals. So we're actually going to look at Michael's levels right now. And again, anyone can do this 3 years old and up. What was the process like, Michael? You don't usually ask this, but like, what was the process like to take a few snips of hair and mail it in?
It was super easy. So the lab got shipped to me. It comes with like a small paper scale. And I just had somebody cut a few snips of hair from the back of my head. You put it on the scale. And once the scale tips, you know you have enough hair at that point, and it really doesn't take much hair, which is nice. And then the lab kit also included return postage, so I just put it back into the mail, sent it out, and I had my results in about 2 weeks.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. It's always nice. Again, we have a very large team over at Equalife. It's good to hear when that process is nice and smooth and easy. So usually what Michael's going through right now, you would get with one of the Equalife coaches, or if you're working with an integrative health practitioner, you would get a call with them as well. So when I'm going over your lab, and hopefully everybody's watching this on video as well, again, you can watch it at stephencabral.com/3518, or right on YouTube on our YouTube channel, which is just my name, Stephen Cabral. So this video, again, is going to be the first of hopefully many where we go through our community's lab results. And you're able to apply yourself by simply going to stephencabral.com/lab read. If you're interested, we will be picking people randomly. And of course, we'll only be using your first name. So when you're looking at Michael's lab right now, the lab is broken up into all the minerals on the first page, and then we'll go to all of the heavy metals on the second. So right now, I'm looking at the electrolyte minerals. Where a lot of people get lost with this test is that it shows you calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. And so when you first look at this, you would say, oh, I'm taking in too much sodium, potassium, and a pretty good amount of calcium and magnesium. But electrolytes get excreted based on levels of stress. And that is exactly what we're looking at. So what we see is sometimes someone's a 4 high and there's a really high level of electrolytes. It doesn't mean you're taking in too many electrolytes. What it means is that there's a high level of stress in the body and a very large amount of excretion. So as your body is under stress, it literally will pull calcium from your bones, one of the biggest reasons for osteoporosis. It will begin to increase a hormone called aldosterone. Like on yours, Michael, you have elevated sodium. So the hormone aldosterone is elevated typically when cortisol levels get elevated. So it's a really nice window into potentially what's going on with your adrenals. When aldosterone gets elevated under stress, your body holds sodium and excretes potassium. And we do see a higher level of potassium. So this does not mean don't take in sodium potassium. Actually, you would be someone, especially with your body type being more of the Vata body type, you will always run a little bit. Again, this is not the nocebo effect. The body type is more prone towards weight loss. It's more prone towards being lean. It's also more prone to a racing mind, a little bit more anxiety. But that doesn't mean that it can't be balanced with a Vata pacifying routine, which is what we're going to talk about. So your sodium levels, potassium levels, we actually want a little bit more sodium and potassium in your diet. There's nothing wrong with using electrolytes or a natural electrolyte like a squeeze of lime and a pinch of sea salt in your water throughout the day. Again, nothing wrong with that. But what this does show is there is a larger amount of stress in the body and potentially leading towards muscle loss or more catabolism, maybe even hair loss, because your body is under a higher level of stress and maybe even oxidative stress. I'm going to pause there for a moment before we go over the rest. Does that sound like any of the symptoms or anything that you also might be experiencing?
Yeah. It's interesting because my body feels like it's catabolic, breaking down, even though like I'm eating plenty of foods, I'm eating anabolic based proteins. I even drink raw milk, which I know everybody has an opinion on that. But like I'm doing all the things to kind of be more anabolic. I'm going to the gym, I'm lifting weights, I'm eating cheese, meat, milk, things of that nature, oats. But I still tend to be more breaking down all the time, which of course,
Yes.
yeah.
No, and I think that that's great. And again, I don't, for the right individual, as long as you don't have a food sensitivity to cow's milk, raw milk can be a very nutritious food for certain individuals. And so all the foods that you just named are anabolic foods, which is great. And those are foods that you're going to want for your body type and being able to use those to keep muscle in your body, to keep tissue repair. But what I would also say is that we need to make sure that there's at least double the amount of carbohydrates in your diet that there is protein. And the reason that I say that is that carbohydrates are going to be the only macronutrient to cut stress. And if you're experiencing a lot of stress before bed, and these levels don't say before bed, but they say a lot of stress, carbohydrates at dinner are going to help to produce more serotonin, more GABA, and calm cortisol so that melatonin can naturally rise.
That makes sense.
All right, so I want to move on to your other minerals, and please do feel free to ask any questions. But the first thing that jumps out at me when I'm looking at all of your minerals is that everything is low except for phosphorus, and phosphorus is actually 1 point away from being elevated. Why that matters is that phosphorus, because you're getting plenty of protein, phosphorus is often elevated when there's muscle tissue or bone breakdown. So, especially for someone in great shape, that's lean, that's trying to do all the right things, there's too much breakdown in the body right now. And that could be connective tissue, it could be muscle, it could be hair, it could be nails, it could be anything that the body is made up of protein. So we definitely want that protein. And for you, we're going to be on the higher side of protein because you're naturally lean. We don't need to worry about a lot of the mTOR based issues that other larger, maybe someone who's more overweight or a BMI of above 29 would have to worry about. What we actually are, we want to ensure that we're keeping enough protein for the tissue, but also that you're getting enough protein. The fat's really going to take care of itself. With the amount of total calories you're going to be eating, I'm not as worried about fat. Avocado, olive oil, you don't need to try to get extra. But what I would look to is not just the smoothie in the morning, yes, also oatmeal on the side. Like that's going to be a great carbohydrate or a carbohydrate of your choice, right? At lunch, is there sweet potatoes, yam, wild rice, jasmine rice, like whatever you'd like. And then at dinner, okay, well, what are those carbohydrates as well? I would have a really nice balanced diet since weight loss is not the primary concern here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now going back to the minerals, for someone that eats as well as you do, and for all of your minerals to be on the lower side, and just a note for anybody who's never run this before, We only look at iron if it's high on a minerals and metals test, also called an HTMA. And the reason is that could show elevated iron in the blood. Iron is best looked at in the blood, not on a hair test. We only run it on the hair test to see if it's too high, and Michael, yours isn't, so that's fine. But when I look at your copper, it's on the low side. And when I look at copper, I jump 2 columns and I always look at zinc because that's its partner. And your zinc is just a little too low, but your copper is even lower. So if we're looking at, you don't have any gray hair, but trying to prevent premature graying, to keep healthy, strong hair, to boost your immune system, your zinc and copper are too low. So if there's any allergies, they're too low. So I just need to make sure that we're bumping up both zinc and copper. Now, a lot of people take zinc, which is great, but in your case, we want zinc and copper. And so we're going to be using a very specific nutritional supplement besides food called Balance Zinc, which I'll give you those in just a moment. Your manganese is on the lower side, showing higher stress, more catabolism, less energy production. Chromium and selenium, we do often see lower, but it's important to give those a boost. They just aren't as prevalent in foods as they used to be. And if you're not eating a lot of nuts and seeds, it's difficult to get those levels of chromium and selenium without supplementation. And then phosphorus, we spoke about before, a little higher than I like to see it. I know that you're not drinking soda, I'm sure, and a lot of these things, so you're not going to get a lot of phosphoric acid. So any questions on those minerals? Again, they're almost all low across the board. So what we really need to do is not just get more good nourishment to the body, but also, on the other hand, look at what's causing the greater amount of stress, physically, emotionally, and work on all factors of being a healthy human.
Yeah. You hear people talk about how drinking coffee can like flush a lot of your minerals because it's like a diuretic. Is that
Yes.
something that's true?
So for the Vata body type, caffeine is one of the most detrimental things we can put in the body because you're already running at a fast pace. Like, think about it. Your mind's thinking about the next thing. You're worried, concerned, anxious, like not in a bad way, but it's just more of the operational system, where the Kapha body type is more slower to get going. And now the Vata can get there because they can become burned out. They're actually the body type that burns out the easiest. And the reason is they don't have as many reserves. They're more catabolic. Where the Kapha body type, the endomorph that gains weight easier than losing it, they have far more reserves. They do better with a longer intermittent fast. They do better sometimes with a little bit lower carbohydrate. But you're the exact opposite, especially where you're at both mentally and physically, or psychologically and physiologically. So for us, we wouldn't want to do an extended fast. We're talking about 12 to 14 hours overnight, maybe 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night to 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, that would be very appropriate for you, so that we're not burning through muscle tissue, that we're not super exciting the nervous system, especially with putting caffeine on more of that empty tank. Now, for people that very much enjoy they enjoy coffee but don't really need it, an organic Swiss water processed decaf still gives you a lot of the benefits of the polyphenols and antioxidants of coffee and the taste of it without necessarily the caffeine. And there's still a little caffeine. There's about 13 milligrams of caffeine even in decaf. So my recommendation is don't stop cold turkey. Whatever you're doing right now for your cup of coffee, just try to make it half decaf or 3/4 decaf. The following week, half decaf, and then maybe a quarter. And maybe you're totally fine with that. And if you have that after your smoothie and your oatmeal, I think you're going to be a lot better off.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, because caffeine, it does act like a diuretic. And especially if it is on an empty stomach, it can demineralize you to a degree, for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I've tried to not do coffee, and I've done it for like a month at a time, and it was obvious how much better I felt overall. So I know I just need to do it. But when you live such a clean lifestyle and you don't really eat dessert and this and that, it's like you want to have
yes.
that one vice
Yes.
in today's world, and coffee seems to be that for a lot of people. But I guess we just have to go to the next level of discipline. So
Well, and you still get to enjoy the taste of it and the ritual of having a cup of coffee in the morning, which is, nice for a lot of people. But also, once you get yourself far more balanced, you're going to be able to get away with a half decaf, maybe even, and then certainly a regular coffee every once in a while if you go meet someone for, a coffee. Like, that's not going to be an issue at all. What we're really looking at is, okay, what are you doing 80 to 90% of the time? And so if we can eliminate the caffeine, for sure, it's going to improve these lab numbers and it's going to improve your overall physiology. Yeah, without a doubt.
Great.
And then my other recommendation was if you are going to still stick with the caffeinated coffee, take a product called Adrenal Soothe. We'll talk about that in a moment, or even just L-theanine, 100, 200 milligrams, in order to not allow for that biggest spike in adrenaline and norepinephrine when the body does consume caffeine.
Got it.
All right, so let's go over your heavy metals next. And again, feel free to ask any questions. On this lab, we run for lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and aluminum, and we look for the excretion of that. Now, I will be honest, a lot of times we see aluminum, and that is because aluminum is so pervasive in our environment. Aluminum foil, aluminum pans, aluminum spatulas, aluminum antiperspirants. There's aluminum in certain shampoos. Like there's aluminum in a lot of things. So we see it quite a bit. However, what we don't see as much is arsenic and mercury. So when we do see arsenic and mercury, we want to take a deeper look. And that's what showed up on yours. So there is certainly some mercury and there is some arsenic. The arsenic is not as elevated. The mercury is more elevated. So mercury can come from mercury amalgams, dental fillings in the mouth. It can come from larger fish. It can come from previous vaccinations that haven't been eliminated by the body, and certain other areas that you can get mercury. You can get mercury from certain pharmaceuticals, etc. Arsenic, a lot of times, is from rice-based products, contaminated flours, like a flour, processed like grains, and a few other foods, as well as environmental as well. Any of those sources sound like something that may have got some contamination in your body, your diet?
I don't have any dental fillings. I got vaccinations as a child, and then I eat a lot of rice. So the arsenic could definitely be from the rice. But also one thing I should note is that prior to running this lab, I did a heavy metal detox through Equilife. So I wonder if kind of I'm excreting more of these heavy metals since doing that. So they're showing up here.
If you've done it within the last 6 to 8 weeks, that is absolutely, well, let's put it this way. We looked at 90 days of that. And if you did it even 6 to 8 weeks before, they can be elevated because it's helping to eliminate them from the body. So literally coming out in the hair, coming out in the sweat, coming out in the stool, coming out in the urine. So did you do that heavy metal detox within the previous 4 to 5 months of running this lab?
Yes.
Okay. So that's, I appreciate you bringing that up. And that's actually a good catch because that is a reason that you could see elevated heavy metals is that you're pulling them from the body, which is what we want. So we'll talk about when to retest this in just a moment, but we will then expect to see these drop dramatically and hopefully into that green zone, even for aluminum, once we do the retest on this. So let's just make sure that you're sticking to the lower mercury fish, especially the smaller fish, sardines, anchovies, mackerel, wild trout, wild salmon, and then some of the white fish as well. We have a whole list, which we'll send you, and we can link. Why don't we link it up? We'll link it up at stephencabral.com/3518. That's today's show. And we'll link up the low mercury fish, and you actually can just use the PDF and you'll be able to kind of take that with you. So that'll be straightforward. And then there are low arsenic rice that have been tested for. So we're just going to connect you with those rice as well. Lundberg, which is out of California, test for arsenic. And then also, I think Lotus test for arsenic. So we'll have to check on those and just make sure those levels are low as well. All right.
Great.
So we'll rerun this. So why don't we talk about this right now? We're going to talk about your protocol, but you'll rerun this lab 4 months post protocol. So most people will run this lab approximately 7 to 8 months after they begin their protocol. So we'll begin a 12-week to 16-week protocol, help to rebalance, and then wait another 3 to 4 months because we have to let the hair grow out. So that's the thing is that your hair grows a half an inch every month. And so we just allow it to grow. There is another lab though, that I wanted to share with you that might be worth running to confirm elevated levels of cortisol and just make sure your thyroid levels are also healthy and not exaggerated, not actually in a hyperthyroid. And that's called the stress mood and metabolism test. That can actually be run every 4 to 6 weeks. So that is looking at your hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA for men and women, cortisol early AM, before lunch, before dinner, and then before bed. So we can see if your cortisol is elevated before bed, especially if you're having difficulty sleeping. And then it looks at your thyroid numbers, TSH, T3, T4, and TPO antibodies. It looks at vitamin D3, and it looks at your hemoglobin A1C for blood sugar, and same with insulin. So although you won't run this for about another 7 to 8 months, you can actually run your stress, mood, and metabolism to see how you're doing in maybe even 12 weeks from now. And that would probably be my recommendation. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's look at actually what your protocol would entail. I'm going to zoom out so you can kind of see your top numbers again. So when we're looking at that 30,000 foot view, I want to replenish your mineral levels. That's basically whenever somebody's stressed, their B vitamins become depleted, their zinc levels, copper levels, glutamine levels. So we want to bring all those back up. And then also we want to improve overall electrolytes. Now, even though your calcium, magnesium look good, I would still recommend supplementing a little bit of magnesium at dinner or before bed to calm the sympathetic nervous system. We're just not going to do a high dose magnesium because that actually might make you feel worse. You might feel brain fog or exhausted because your body is already running hot, is already running high cortisol. We actually just need to lower the cortisol, not increase the magnesium as much. All right. So your plan is going to be to develop a 60-minute pre-bed bedtime routine, lifestyle-wise. So that's going to be turning down the overhead lights, putting on amber lights or soft glow lights, salt lamps, things of that nature, or putting on a pair of blue light blocking glasses. So I wear these orange ones a lot. You want the darker lens, the night type ones. You want to be able to block more of the blue light. And that allows then your body to say, oh, okay, it's actually nighttime. Cortisol levels can drop and then melatonin will begin to rise. So going for a walk after dinner, 7:30 at night, just a leisurely walk, 20 minutes, that helps to calm the central nervous system. All of those things are very, very helpful. Reading an actual book in bed, 30 minutes before bed, helps to calm the body. Doing some breathing exercises. You don't have to do them all. You want to find the thing that connects with you to calm the central nervous system. So for me, it's reading a book 20, 30 minutes before I want to go to bed. It's putting on this little TENS unit to help calm the nervous system, or listen to some binaural beats, and it's putting on blue light blocking glasses. And then beside my bed, all there is a salt lamp. There's actually a lamp, but it's a salt lamp light in it that glows like a salt lamp. And so then I click that off and I'm basically ready for bed. And so my goal is to fall asleep within 10 minutes of my head hitting the pillow. That's what I would like for you as well. Less than 20 minutes. And then I want to make sure that your room is cool enough to let your heart rate come down. A lot of people, they get too hot. That's why they wake up during the night. And I want to make sure that's not one of the reasons why you're having to wake up to urinate during the middle of the night as well. All right. So let's go over the nutritional supplements that I would also recommend specifically for you. We do always start someone with the daily nutritional support powder that you can put in your smoothie. It sounds like you're using that. I just want to make sure you're using 2 scoops, that using 2 full scoops. And that we might even do that mid-afternoon as well for 3 to 4 months to get you double the dose, to get in more protein, but really more of the B vitamins. The other product I'm recommending is the daily omega-3 support for overall inflammation. I do like to use 1 at lunch, 1 at dinner, or 2 at dinner to really calm and work with the body. Vitamin D3, if you're not maintaining a tan year-round, is going to help with the hormones and stress levels. Typically, we start clients at 4,000 IUs a day. It's about 100 micrograms. And then 2 specialty products for you, which would be the balanced zinc, 1 capsule at dinner. And that's to boost your zinc and copper levels. And the other is going to be the Adrenal Soothe product. And if the anxiety is more at night, then we're only going to take this at dinner. If it's low level during the day, we'll take 1 at breakfast and we'll take 1 at lunch, just to help take the edge off just a bit. And again, this product, it says Adrenal Soothe, but remember, it's just ingredients, right? But these are scientifically backed ingredients. It's L-theanine, it's ashwagandha, it's phosphatidylserine, and it's other calming natural Ayurvedic and modern day science-based ingredients. So, and then at dinner, we're going to do 2 to 3 capsules to really knock down cortisol levels, especially if you're taking them around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. That all of that's going to work really great with you. So if you have no problem falling asleep, we won't be using the liquid melatonin. If you have difficulty falling asleep, we'll just keep a bottle beside your bed. In the nights that you might have difficulty, you can't turn off the brain, we'll take 1 or 2 droppers of that. So that's going to be your initial protocol. We're going to check in 3 to 4 weeks to see how it is going. We can check in weekly, but check in 3 to 4 weeks to say, okay, do we need to increase anything? Do we need to decrease anything? Because remember, we humans aren't static and neither are you, and the program should be adaptive to you. So the lifestyle, the more carbohydrates, especially at dinner, the bedtime routine, and the nutritional supplements is really going to help to dial this in. Any questions on that?
No, I mean, that's pretty impressive, like how much analysis you can do of my health just based on this one test. I mean, obviously you've worked with so many people, so you know what you're doing here, but this has been extremely helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure. I mean, this and the stress mood and metabolism tests were really the first 2 labs I ever took when I was 19 years old. And it's incredibly insightful. I mean, that's the thing, is that your hair is a tissue of the body. So even when people hear about using hair as a sample, well, think of it as saliva, which is showing you what's available to the body. Urine, what was used. Blood, what's available. Hair, what has been used and now it's excreted. And so it is a viable way and a great way and non-invasive, right? No needles to be able to take a test like this. So that's why it's always been a goal of mine to be able to bring integrative health and functional medicine to as many people around the world as we can. We're trying to do that as best we can. I don't know if you came in through our first labs program, but this is one of about a half a dozen labs that you can get as a first time. We can't do this obviously for everyone, but we can do it for 100 people per lab per month. And there are about 6 labs right now. So the first labs program is, if you've never run a lab, especially a functional medicine lab test like this with EqualLife, is that you can get yours at 50% off. And so you can see that these are full price labs, at EqualLife, but it's always been my goal to bring this and share this with the world, with the public. So you can go to stevencabral.com/firstlab. Do feel free. Take 50% off your first lab, and you get automatically a call with that to go over the results. And you get a program, just like we're doing here for Michael. But if you ever want to submit it, you can also submit it to this show, and we can do a lab read. And that's at stevencabral.com/lab read. And we'd be happy to look through yours as well. We're going to try to choose a couple of months to actually go over. My goal with this, of course, I want to help people like Michael, but I also want to demystify this for the world. My goal is to show you that there is so much more data that's actually far more helpful than running blood work alone. You should run your blood work. Blood work is great at diagnosing a disease. But if you're out of range on blood work, you've gone too long. It's been too long without being able to see why you're out of range in the first place, why you now have a diagnosable disease. So it's my goal to show you the underlying root causes, such as the getting to be elevated level of phosphorus for Michael, the elevated stress, which is showing as high sodium potassium, the lower zinc and copper, which can show some of the muscle-based loss, and also the high heavy metals, which luckily are not causing an issue for Michael right now, but they could if we weren't able to eliminate those right now. So Michael found these ahead of time, which is really great. So, Michael, I want to say thank you for participating in the show. You were obviously a great sport to be able to do that, to be able to share this information with people. So do you have any last questions or anything that I can help with?
No, I would just say a big thank you to you and your team. You guys help a lot of people around the world. Your products are great. So thank you so much for taking your time to meet with me today.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody in the community. If this was helpful, do feel free to share it. Just head on over to stevencabral.com/3518. We'll link up the First Labs program. We will link up this lab as well. And we'll link up the lab read link. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing day. I'll talk with you tomorrow on the Cabral Concept. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.